Spring Television. Ours it is.
Police in Imo State arrest 9 suspected IPOB members over the murder of 5 officers and 2 civilians. Troops neutralized 3 bandits in Anka local government area of Zamfara State. Socio-economic rights and accountability project SERAP sues INEC over alleged failure to investigate electoral offenders in 2023 elections. On the foreign scene, fighting intensifies in Sudan's capital, shattering latest ceasefire aimed at allowing people to flee to safety. Good evening, this is News at 7 on Western Spring Television. My name is Okpayamuni. The police command in Imo State says it has arrested 9 suspected members of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, over the murder of 5 officers and 2 civilians in the state. On April 21st, gunmen killed the officers and a couple identified as Mr. and Mrs. Nwago during an attack at Okpala community in Ngo Okpala local government area of Imo State. The gunmen were said to have attacked the police officers while they were eating at a restaurant. Imo police spokesperson Henry Okoye in a statement today said the suspects were apprehended at their hideout in Ezehinte Mbaise local government area on Thursday. The police spokesperson said Paul Obali, a 70-year-old man identified as an herbalist, was also arrested. Still in Imo State, a Catholic Church priest, Reverend Father Michael Asomugwa, who was kidnapped in the state, has regained his freedom. Reverend Father Asomugwa is the assistant parish priest of the St. Paul's Catholic Church in Osu, Isiala, Mbana local government area of Imo State. He was kidnapped on April 15, 2023 along Oriago-Obowo Road while on his way back from the diocesan diaconate ordination. The VTAM missionaries confirmed today that the cleric was freed yesterday and is receiving medical treatment in a hospital. Staying with security, troops of Operation Adarin Daji have neutralized the 3 bandits in an ambush at Ankadan Kapani Crossing in Anka local government area of Zamfara State. The Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Musa Damandani, made this known in the statement today. He said the troops also recovered 1 PKT gun with 48 rounds of ammunition, 3 AK-47 rifles, 3 magazines with 63 rounds of ammunition, and 3 motorcycles. In the meantime, the Defense Headquarters says troops of Operation Wellstroke have raided a weapon fabrication factory in Wukari local government area of Taraba State and arrested 2 suspected gun runners. Director of Defense Media Operations, Musa Damandami, in a statement said the troops acted on credible intelligence. He said all arrested criminals and recovered weapons and ammunition have been handed over to appropriate authorities for further actions. The Defense Headquarters encouraged the general public to avail troops with credible and timely information on terrorist and all criminal activities within their area. In Osun State, Governor Ademola Adeleke today commiserated with friends and families of the victims of a road accident in Odo-Omu, Osun State. In a statement by spokesperson Malam Olawale Rashid, the governor expressed his shock over the incident, describing it as a sad and unfortunate occurrence. He prayed that God grants the deceased eternal rest and grant the family fortitude to bear the loss, adding that it is a loss not only for their families, but for Osun State as a whole. Yesterday, 16 persons were burnt to death and others wounded in an auto crash in the Odo-Omu area of Osun State. The victims include 11 adults and 5 children. Only 1 person was identified and taken away by the family, while 4 others sustained injuries. Moving on, operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, have seized 126 parcels of Canadian Loud, a synthetic strain of cannabis weighing 63 kilograms, concealed in a used Toyota Corolla car imported from Toronto, Canada, at the Tinkan Port in Lagos. Similarly, an attempt by freight agent Modi Samuel to export 900 grams of the same substance hidden inside walls of a traveling bag containing food items to Kenya was yesterday thwarted by NDLEA officers at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos. This is according to a statement by the agency's spokesman, Femi Babafemi. He also said men of the agency's Directorate of Operations and Investigation attached to Korea firms on Thursday intercepted 1.53 kilograms of skunk concealed in old hard drives meant for export to Dubai. In Benue, operatives recovered 859 bottles of codeine-based syrup when abandoned by suspected dealer about 2 kilometers away from NDLEA checkpoint along Enugu-Otukpo Road. Mr. Babafemi said 2 suspects, Kabiru Mohammed and Isa Mohammed, were arrested with 20 blocks of cannabis concealed in a bag of cassava flakes along Zaria Kano Road in Kano. Meanwhile, no fewer than 7 bags of cannabis with a gross weight of 74.5 kilograms were recovered when operatives raided an uncompleted building located in a bush in Alatown, Akure area of Ondo State. 19 undergraduates of Akwa Ibom State University, Nkpati Enin, have been arrested by operatives of the Uyo Command of Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, for suspected internet-related offenses. They were arrested at their private hostels located at Ikot Akwadem. The agency said the arrest followed several months of surveillance on their suspected involvement in romance scam, fraudulent cryptocurrency transactions, and impersonation. Items recovered from them include several laptops and mobile phones. EFCC authorities say the suspects will be charged to court as soon as investigations are concluded. In a similar vein, Justices Ijeoma Ojukwu and Rosemary Ogogore of the Federal High Court sitting in Calabar, Cross River State, have convicted and sentenced 6 internet fraudsters to various terms of imprisonment. They were convicted after pleading guilty to different charges bordering on obtaining by false pretense and criminal impersonation. In other news, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has sued the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, over the alleged failure to investigate and probe electoral offenders in the 2023 general election. In a suit filed at the Federal High Court in Abuja by Kolawole Oluwadare, Andrew Nwankwo, and Blessing Oguche, SERAP wants the electoral umpire to be compelled to appoint an independent counsel to investigate and prosecute allegations of electoral offenses against politicians, including governors and their deputies. SERAP argues that by allegedly engaging in electoral violence and other electoral offenses in so blatant a fashion, suspected perpetrators and their sponsors have clearly acted in violation of constitutional provisions, international standards, and the Electoral Act. The group said the investigation and prosecution of culpable politicians will end the impunity of perpetrators and advance Nigerians' right to freely participate in the democratic process. According to SERAP, election violence is inconsistent and incompatible with the principles of democracy, the rule of law, transparency, and accountability. Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, has asked opposition parties to desist from complaining about the outcome of the presidential election. While speaking on Thursday at a meeting with APC governors in Abuja, President Muhammadu Buhari said while the All Progressives Congress was working hard to retain the presidency, opposition parties were basking in the euphoria of false hope and overconfidence. The opposition parties reacted by criticizing the president's comment, claiming that the election was rigged in favor of APC. In a statement today, Special Assistant to the Minister, Segun Adeyemi, quoted him as saying the opposition parties should stop their endless grumbling over the election. The minister said the opposition parties lost the presidential poll woefully and that President Buhari's analysis of the election is accurate. You're watching News at 7 on Western Spring Television. Still to come, Fighting intensifies in Sudan's capital, shattering latest ceasefire aimed at allowing people to flee to safety. We'll bring you more on this when we return.
James Ajibolaige was a lawyer who obtained his first degree in classics from Nigeria's premier University of Ibadan. Born September 13, 1930, the orator and the polyglot spoke impeccable English, French, Igbo, Hausa, and Yoruba languages. His fine diction placed him among classical orators and public speakers like Cicero, the Roman orator. This attribute earned him the prefix Cicero of Esauke. He authored Kaduna Boy, an autobiography, Detainee's Diary, Constitution, and the People, among 6 other books. Bolaige was a colorful politician, elected governor Oyo State in 1979 and appointed a federal minister in 1999. He was a pioneer founder of Afenifere, the Yoruba social, cultural, and political group. He invested his political sagacity to propel the group to the height of political leadership and decision-making in the southwest of Nigeria. Bolaige was assassinated on the 23rd December 2001. His murderers are yet to be apprehended till today. Western Spring Television identifies Bolaige as a watershed character in history. Ahmadu Bello, Prince Royal, was born 6th of December 1910 at Raba Village, Sokoto, northwestern Nigeria. His father was a district head and heir apparent to the Sultanate throne from the house of Usmanu Danfodio, a religious and social reformer who brought the Habib dynasty under the Fulani Caliphate in the beginning of the 19th century. Ahmadu Bello raised the bar of political consciousness and participation when, in 1944, he engineered the establishment of the Northern People's Congress (NPC) as the first political party in northern Nigeria and the rallying point for politicians in the region before independence. History will not forget Ahmadu Bello for his charisma and political sagacity, which provided easy passage for his kinsmen to assume political and administrative positions in Nigeria's post-independence era. The distinguished elder statesman and Sardauna of Sokoto has his face on his country's 200 naira currency as a mark of honor to one of the architects of Nigeria's independence. Western Spring Television identifies Ahmadu Bello as a watershed character in history.
Welcome back. This is still news at 7 on Western Spring Television. A reminder of our headlines. Police in Imo State arrest 9 suspected IPOB members over the murder of 5 officers and 2 civilians. Troops neutralized 3 bandits in Anka local government area of Zamfara State. Socio-economic rights and accountability projects RAP sues INEC over alleged failure to investigate electoral offenders in 2023 elections. On the foreign scene, fighting intensifies in Sudan's capital, shattering latest ceasefire aimed at allowing people to flee to safety. The federal government has once again approved the use of Eagle Square for the May Day parade. The Nigeria Labour Congress had accused the government of blocking the use of the facility for the Workers' Day celebration despite initially giving approval. Consequently, NLC had said the celebration will be held on the streets of Abuja. Reacting to the development, Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, said Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Mohammed Bello, blamed overzealous officials of the Federal Capital Development Authority for the withdrawal of approval. The traditional ruler of Obudu, Joseph Davis Agba, is dead. Davis Agba's death was announced today by his son, Kije Jedi Agba, in Calabar, Cross River State capital. The late traditional ruler, who was on the throne for 64 years, is widely regarded as the longest-serving monarch in Nigeria. Mr. Jediagba said the public would be informed of the details of the funeral as soon as traditional rites are concluded. Until his death, the late monarch was the Chancellor of Cross River State University. He was the father of the Minister of State for Power, Godi Jediagba. The Nigerian ambassador to the Republic of Sudan, Safi Olanio, has said the embassy is waiting for clearance from the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and NEMA on the buses, and also the governments of Nigeria and Egypt to move the buses across the border. Olanio, in a voice message sent through the Nigerian Diaspora Commission, stated that a security clearance is what is needed for those at the borders of Sudan to move to Egyptian borders, and all that needs to be contacted has been done. He also clarified that the embassy was not in charge of procuring the buses, but is only following instructions from the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry and NEMA. The ambassador assured parents and students that the embassy officials are fully on ground in Khartoum, and as such, they share in the challenges from the war with all Nigerians affected. Ambassador Olanio further urged the evacuees not to take any action against the embassy officers, as had earlier been speculated, noting that no official is leaving the country until the last Nigerian has been evacuated. On the foreign scene, fighting has intensified in Sudan's capital, Khartoum, shattering the latest ceasefire aimed at allowing people to flee to safety. The army today said it was attacking the city from all directions with airstrikes and heavy artillery to flush out its paramilitary rivals. The truce was due to end at midnight today, and millions remain trapped in the capital where food is running short. Meanwhile, the first major aid flight laden with medical supplies has arrived in Sudan. The International Committee of the Red Cross says a plane landed at Port Sudan with 8 tons of relief supplies, including health kits for hospitals. More than 70% of health facilities in the capital have been forced to close as a result of the fighting that erupted on the 15th of April. More than 500 people have been reported killed, with the actual total number of dead and injured expected to be much higher.
Quite quickly from Port Sudan, delivered to the hospitals that are in most need. And that requires indeed a ceasefire that should be respected by both sides for us to be able, with our colleagues from the Sudanese Red Crescent, to deliver these items as quickly as we can to the hospitals and allow the medical personnel, doctors and nurses, but also first aid volunteers to do their job. Because for now, they are, as much as they're trying, people are extremely disappointed because no one, unfortunately, is able to build a strong humanitarian response as it needed. Since the 14th of April, the number of casualties has only increased because the fighting is happening in densely populated area in a capital of 6 million people. The World Health Organization.
In Europe, a man shot 3 people dead and then committed suicide today in the Portuguese city of Setúbal, about 45 kilometers south of the capital. PSP Police Commissioner João Freire said the Police Criminal Cases Agency was at the scene investigating. The shooting took place at around 8 a.m. in a poor neighborhood of Setúbal called Bairro Azul. The gunman committed suicide when police officers arrived on the scene. US President Joe Biden said 92-year-old tycoon Rupert Murdoch made him look like singer Harry Styles, and joked that he was friends with one of the US founding fathers, James Madison, at an annual press dinner. The president traditionally faces friendly jibes in front of journalists at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. 80-year-old Mr. Biden has announced the plans to run for re-election and took aim at critics who think he is too old to do so. Washington's political and media elites gathered on Saturday night in the U.S. Capitol for an annual event whose mood ranged from traditional comedy gags to somber calls to free reporters imprisoned abroad.
At this inflection point in history, let us commit there will be a nation that will embrace light over darkness, truth over lies, and finally restore the soul of the nation. Hear, hear. Ladies and gentlemen, can I give you that?
Yes.
I'm going to turn this over to Roy. Roy, the podium is yours. I'm going to be fine with your jokes, but I'm not sure about Dark Brandon. All yours, pal.
In the United Kingdom, the General Secretary of the Royal College of Nursing, RCN, has said nurses have worked tirelessly with National Health Service in England to make sure their strike is safe for patients. The RCN will hold industrial action from 8 p.m. today until 11:59 p.m. on Monday after voting to reject the latest government offer. The union initially said it would not agree to derogations, broad areas of care where staffing is guaranteed despite industrial action, but granted some exemptions on Friday in an apparent U-turn. RCN General Secretary Pat Cullen said there are national exemptions in place for really acute urgent services. However, Transport Secretary Mark Harper claimed nurses had not agreed national exemptions, which he said would clearly put patients at risk.
We have put national exemptions in place, and our nurses, as I've said time and time again, will never leave their patients unsafe or create more risk that's already in the system at this point in time. There are national exemptions in place for a range of services, for emergency departments, for intensive care units, for neonatal units, paediatric intensive care units, those really acute urgent services. We have put national exemptions in place. We've worked tirelessly with NHS England. In fact, it was the Royal College of Nursing contacted NHS England to ask for a process to be put in place so that we could make sure that this strike was safe for our patients.
Well, I think the thing that's very difficult here is that because they haven't agreed any national exemptions, it makes it very difficult for those individual trusts and individual trust managers to put in place arrangements to deal with those areas like A&E, like cancer treatment. It clearly does put patients at risk, which is why we urge the unions not to go ahead and do the strike. Clearly, if NHS staff are not working, I mean, all of those trusts are going to work really hard to put in place contingency arrangements. At local level, they'll all be working with NHS staff to look at the contingency arrangements and doing their best. But clearly, there will be an impact if nurses don't come to work.
Turning to Asia, at least 11 people have died following a gas leak in northern India, with several people found unconscious in their homes. Women and children are amongst those who died in the port city of Ludhiana in Punjab state. The area was sealed off and residents were evacuated after many reported breathing difficulties. 4 people are being treated in hospital. A team from the National Disaster Response Force has been sent to the site in Gaspura area of Ludhiana. Still ahead, United States regulators are racing to find a rescuer to buy First Republic Bank. We have more on these and other business stories after this break. Please stay with us.
The Korean War of 1950 to 1953 pitched North and South Korea against each other in response to intrigues by nations beyond their border with different interests from those canvassed by the two brother nations. The Korean War had all the nuances of an external conflict induced by powers that were interested in subjugating North and South Korea. Japan had leveraged on its military power to annex Korea in 1900 and imposed a military union that did not sit well with the citizens. Japan not only lost its war of conquest against Korea, all its powers were obliterated by the effect of the World War II. The end of World War II got Korea divided into two nations along 38th parallel lines by the instrumentality of the United States of America and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic. The Korean War lapsed into a Cold War when it stopped the prying eyes of external forces into the internal affairs figures of a nation now divided along its north and southern territories. Western Spring Television identifies the Korean War as a major event in history. Named Mao Zedong at birth, but globally known as Mao Zedong, he was a Chinese revolutionary and founder, People's Republic of China, which he led as chairman of the Chinese Communist Party from 1949 until his death in 1976. He was a communist who believed in the attainment of power by the instrumentality of gun. His wise saying, "Political power grows out of the barrel of gun," formed the major plank of his revolutionary struggle for the control of China. In the long span of his leadership and political power, Mao Zedong relentlessly entrenched the communist philosophy in China, which emphasized the revolutionary struggle of the vast majority of people against the exploiting class and their state structures. The communist leaders defined the class struggle as people's war. Mao Zedong was a story of grass to grace, having risen from peasantry to preeminent status as China's most respected leader. Western Spring Television identifies Mao Zedong as a major character in history. Born Jeremiah Oyeni Obafemi on March 6, 1905, Obafemi Awolowo was a prime architect of Nigeria's independence and most consummate advocate of free education and social welfare in Africa's most populous nation. Erudite politician, thinker, and philosopher, Awo was fondly addressed by associates and political colleagues, brought his unique attributes to bear on governance in the defunct Western region. He administered as leader of government business and the premier between 1955 and 1958. Obafemi Awolowo's premiership witnessed pioneering in multi-sectoral policy initiatives and execution. The Western region under his administration paraded several enviable records. First television station in Africa, first real estate in Nigeria, first high-rise building in Nigeria, first modern sports stadium in Nigeria, first agricultural settlement in Nigeria, first modern civil service secretariat in Nigeria, and first industrial estate in Nigeria. His face is on 100 naira denomination as a mark of honor for his distinguished services to his country. Western Spring Television identifies Obafemi Awolowo as a major character in history.
Welcome back. Now to business. Commercial Bank SunTrust Bank Nigeria Limited has declared a profit before tax of 1.51 billion naira for 2022, representing a 195.6% growth in the bank's profit before tax compared to the 2021 figure, which was a loss of 1.58 billion naira. This was disclosed in the bank's 2022 audited financial result. Similarly, the bank's total assets grew by 94.7% from 67.9 billion naira in 2021 to 132.3 billion naira in 2022. However, total deposit liabilities grew by 61.8%. In the meantime, United States regulators are racing to find a rescuer to buy First Republic Bank in a deal that could be announced as soon as today. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation has reportedly asked 6 banks to bid for the embattled lender. Shares in First Republic plunged last week after it admitted that customers had withdrawn $100 billion in deposits in March. At that time, its competitor, Silicon Valley Bank, had collapsed, prompting fears of a wider banking crisis. SVB's failure was swiftly followed by the demise of another U.S. lender, Signature Bank. According to reports, the FDIC sought to bid to First Republic by the end of last week and has been assessing them over the weekend. French government minister Olivier Grégoire says food price inflation in France, which has been a major concern for consumers, should ease off by September. Mr. Gruger, who is a government minister responsible for small and medium-sized enterprises, disclosed this in an interview with France Inter Radio. Data published on April 28 showed the French economy grew 0.2% in the first quarter, despite strikes against the government's pension reform bill, but inflation remained stubbornly high. France's headline inflation level rose to 5.9% in April from 5.7% in March. In the Middle East, Iran's parliament voted in an impeachment session today to remove the industry minister amidst soaring prices as Islamic Republic's economy reels under the pressure of international sanctions. Reza Fatemi Amin failed to garner enough support in a vote of confidence that saw 162 lawmakers vote in favor of his removal and 102 against. Parliament Speaker Mohamed Bagher Ghalibaf announced the results of the vote during a session broadcast live on state television. It was the second time he had faced such a vote in Parliament over the same issues after securing 182 votes in November. Majority vote that meant he stayed in the post. A major factor in the new impeachment was the rising price of domestically manufactured vehicles after foreign imports dried up because of sanctions on Iran's nuclear ambitions. Last year, the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who has the final say in major policies, criticized the high prices and low quality of homemade products, including cars. Welcome to sports. The Nigeria Football Federation has concluded arrangements to install video assistant referee in regional stadiums in the country, as plans are on the way to train and retrain referees to achieve the purpose. President of the Federation, Malam Ibrahim Gusau, stated this in Ilori at the National Elective Delegates Conference of the Nigeria Referees Association. Gusau, represented by an NFF official, Mohamed Aminu, charged the incoming leadership of the association to come up with development plans to forecast, organize, and ensure the future of Nigerian referees is properly nurtured and watered towards the growth of the game, while reiterating the unflinching support of the NFF to NRA in their quest to change the face of football in the country. Gusau said the installation of VAR aids to the growth and development of football. Napoli missed the chance to win Serie A for the first time in 33 years today after being held to a 1-1 draw by Salernitana. Runaway league leaders, Napoli needed to win to secure their third league crown with 6 games remaining in the season after Inter Milan beat closest challengers Lazio 3-1 earlier in the day. But the long-awaited Scudetto party will have to be put on hold for at least a few more days after Boulaye Diaz's stunning strike 6 minutes from time ensured Salernitana escaped with a point. Luciano Spalletti's team are 18 points ahead of Lazio, but Juve can close that gap to 17 by winning at Bologna in today's late match and moving into second place. Depending on how that match and Juve and Lazio's game on Wednesday go, Napoli could be crowned champions before they take the field at Udinese on Thursday night. In England, Manchester City beat Fulham 2-1 to return to the top of the Premier League as Erling Haaland scored his 58th goal of the season in all competitions. Haaland converted a third-minute penalty after Julian Alvarez had been fouled by Tim Ream to become the first top-flight player to reach a half-century of goals in one campaign since Tom Pongo Waring did so for Aston Villa in 1931. The Norwegian striker also moved level for most goals in the Premier League season, matching the 34 goals Andy Cole scored for Newcastle in 1993-1994 season and the same amount Alan Shearer registered for Blackburn a year later. City's win moves them above and 1 point clear of Arsenal, with Pep Guardiola's side having a game in hand. This was the first time City have been above Arsenal since mid-February as they aim to win the Premier League, Champions League and FA Cup treble.
Mikel after the press conference against Arsenal said, I've been 20 years here and many things I've seen happen in the last games. He's right. So this type of game today we play, it's going to happen quite often. First, because, for example, in Goodison Park, we're going to play there between Madrid games. When they are playing football, don't be relegated. In the atmosphere for Goodison Park, the physicality they have, it's going to happen. So I'm pretty sure that now the only concern I have is recovery the players as best as possible. The guys who have a lot of minutes, recovery well. This is the main target that we have in all of us, to be as much fit as possible, the players, to compete every game like we are competing the last 2-3 months. Not even Winston Churchill was Prime Minister. So it's amazing how many goals. That means what he has done, that's why we are here and fighting for 3 competitions, 1 more game, and now come back to Manchester, recover as best as possible and prepare the next one. His love for the game, his joy to be here, and his competitive instinct, and of course he scored a lot of goals for us in the good moments and in the bad moments. Yeah, what a sign. The impact always when Julian plays is amazing. Of course, when we're a striker, sometimes he cannot play, but he gives the penalty, clear one, and after that, the extraordinary goal, how he fight, he's a top class player. Yeah, it's better to be here than don't be here, honestly. We are tired, but it's better.
Thank you so much.
In the meantime, Bruno Fernandes scored his 100th career goal to boost Manchester United's Champions League hopes and end Aston Villa's 10-match unbeaten run. Fernandes pounced 6 minutes before halftime after Emiliano Martinez had turned Marcus Rashford's shot into his path. It sealed a deserved victory for the host, who had already gone close through Marcel Sabitzer. The result ensures United have a healthy advantage on the club's chasing a top 4 spot, with Villa now 9 points adrift of the Red Devils, having missed the chance to cut the gap to just 3 points.
Impressive. I think Leeds played very well. To give a big compliment, we are on tough schedule. If you see the recovery times we have and our opponents and what we can deliver, that's really impressive. First half on the ball, very good. Many chances, concede almost nothing. One switch off moment, but for the rest okay. And then second half, we didn't finish the game, and then you have to battle. And we were determined. You see the save from Victor Lindelof. That was really impressive. Yeah, but I think last week they said the same about Brighton. And our team is determined, and I think our game plan was good. The players executed very good, and we're happy. We know what we can do. I think there was a big performance, a lot. But I have said the whole season we have choices there, and they're all good. But the cooperation, so the communication has to be right, and that's not easy when you don't play together. And then a fullback is playing centre back, and he's doing, and together is Lindelof. So we are. I knew before this week, and I was before on the. I was happy with the point in Spurs, but of course, when you see the game and you are 2-0 up, you are a bit disappointed. But when with this win, it's a perfect.
But before we go, here's a recap of our major stories. The police command in Imo State says it has arrested 9 suspected members of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, over the murder of 5 officers and 2 civilians in the state. Troops of Operation Adarindaji have neutralized 3 bandits in an ambush at Ankadan Kapani Crossing in Anka local government area of Zamfara State. The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SRAP, has sued the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, over the alleged failure to investigate and probe electoral offenders in the 2023 general elections. On the foreign scene, fighting has intensified in Sudan's capital, Khartoum, shattering the latest ceasefire aimed at allowing people to flee to safety. Please do follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. I am Okpeye Muni. Thanks for watching.